Mother! Hey guys, I'm David with Southern Style DIY. I love Star Wars and I'm a huge fan of the Mandalorian show, so I wanted to do a project inspired by it. My first thought was, what would Jackman do? Then I quickly scaled that back. So today we are going to power carve a 3.5 foot tall Mythosaur Skull out of 25 2x4s. Let's get started by cleaning up all the edges on these 2x4s. The 2x4s are cleaned up so we can move to the miter saw where we can cut to length and move from the big pieces to the small pieces to maximize our wood. I'm really glad that I dry fit the skull together before making any of this permanent. It was originally taller and I had to remove 3 sections before liking these proportions much better. Now I can start sectioning off the pieces to glue up before making it one big solid piece. Phase 1 of the glue is now complete and we can move on to sanding all the sides smooth off camera so we can glue all the slices into one big piece that will be ready for power carving. The glue up's done, but I did have some pretty big gaps that I wanted to fill. You can actually see one of them on top of the skull there. I filled those gaps using some of these offcuts that are really thin from cleaning up the faces of the 2x4s. I'm gonna move this off my outfeed table and then we'll start the power carving. I'm going to start the power carving process with the angle grinder and this extreme shaping disc from Kutzall so we can knock off the corners, get this thing more round, and then we can start layering in some of those details. This is a terrible idea. Okay, that works. All right. The shape is starting to get roughed in, but I can't get the angle grinder into some of these more difficult spots. So I'm gonna switch to the die grinder and these extreme burrs to help me shape up these difficult spots. Progress has been super slow getting into all these nooks and crannies that I can't fit the angle grinder into, and that's mainly because the die grinder is more of a detailed tool. We're trying to remove a ton of material. So let's try to speed that up a little bit. While doing some more cutting off camera, a huge piece of this tusk broke off. Fortunately, it looks like I can glue it back together, but if that doesn't work, we'll add some detailing in here to make it look like the tusk may have broken in combat or something. That way it becomes a part of the piece and not a mistake that people look at. I think we saved a ton of time by switching over to the reciprocating saw, but now we have a bunch of these angles that we need to smooth over again. So we're going to switch back to the angle grinder, smooth those out, and then we'll add in some of these details. We finally had the general shape of the skull roughed in, and I can move on to these details, which I've honestly been putting off for a little bit. I'm gonna use the chisel to outline the details so I can see a little bit better, and then use a combination of tools to pull out material so it appears that this is a hollow cavity. My cheap set of chisels helped me take out a ton of material without causing another sawdust storm in my shop. But as I was doing that and looking at the skull, some of my modeling elements aren't translating well into the real world, like these big bulges on the cheeks. So I'm gonna pull up my reciprocating saw one last time and add a couple of details like evening up this tusk, adding a taper to the teeth, and then lopping off these bulges. That'll let us finalize the shape and we can finally move on to the details. Huge thanks to my friends at Kutzall for sending me all the power carving tools I needed to make this skull a reality. I'm still pretty new to power carving and was a little nervous to get started, but using these tools, I quickly gained the confidence I needed to make these projects happen. I'm gonna have links down in the description to all the shaping discs and burrs I use. Check out their website though, because they've got a ton of other tools and accessories that'll help you with your power carving projects, whether you're new to it like me or whether you want to beef up your collection. Thanks, Kutzall. I'm gonna go ahead and call the shaping on the skull done so that I don't remove too much material and have enough left to add in details like shaping out the teeth and adding cracks and striations along the tusks that'll really make this look like a real life skull, even though it's dead. The last step before applying a clear coat is to darken up a couple of these areas, but I don't want to use stain, so instead I'm going to use fire. Last step, clear coat. We overcame a ton of different issues during this project, but the Mythosaur Skull from the Mandalorian is finally done, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's not 100% movie or Disney Plus accurate, but I really like how the wood grain looks like the skull has tattoos running all over it. And despite cutting them both off, we were able to keep both tusk tips, which I was a little bit worried about there. If you're interested in power carving but want to see a project that's more obtainable while still being unique, I also power carved a life-size Deadpool head that I use as a headphone stand. I have that project pulled up right over here, so I'll see you in that video.